Greetings, fellow readers. This is Rambling Collector here, and we are going to be starting off the new year with another Warhammer 40,000 novel review. This time, we're going to be talking about the Astra Militarum novel, Catachan Devil, by Justin Woolley. So, I'd read this book a while back, but due to the whole holiday stresses, I wasn't able to get the review out, so we're going to be talking about this particular novel now. This novel in particular, with helping me to get back into the Warhammer franchise as a whole, was a great way to start, especially since it features the Catachan Jungle Fighters. For those of you who are wondering who exactly they are, well, you're about to find out. So, with that being said, let's get started with the review. So my overall thoughts on Catachan Devil as a whole. Well, first of all, this particular novel shines the spotlight on the Catachan Jungle Fighters, their guerrilla warfare tactics, and their survival of the fittest attitude. See, for the Catachan Jungle Fighters, these guys are, picture an army of Rambos, elite super soldiers who are raised to survive in the most horrendous of circumstances, especially considering their home planet, Catachan, is crawling with the most venomous, most notorious, and most terrifying beasts imaginable in the entire galaxy. So the Catachan Jungle Fighters are like the peak performance of humanity without any sort of stimulations, any augmetics, nothing. These are peak humanity brought to the brink, surviving out in the wilds of the jungle, and forced to survive just to, well, like I said, survive on their home planet for even another day or night. They have to train themselves to the absolute peak, and this is without any sort of augmentations once again. Whether mechanical, biological, whatever. This is them fighting. And for that, they prefer to pack light, strike hard, strike fast, and get out as quick as they can, with guerrilla tactics, no less, serving them very well in areas with high jungle density, or any other major planet that features any hot, dense, very hard to survive worlds. Hence their survival of the fittest attitude. But, more than that, I really liked how this novel, throughout, featured a great plethora of point-of-view characters, such as Colonel Aldalon, the leader of the Catachan and forces wherewith, Trooper Torvin, a conscript from his home world, who is forced to work with the Catachans after being one of the only survivors of his regiment, surviving an onslaught of orcs on an Imperial outpost. And as such, Torvin has to learn how to survive along with the Catachans, who are very different from the normal Imperial regiments, with no commissar peeking over his shoulder trying to make sure that he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He has to deal with Colonel Aldalon, who, in my opinion, is probably a lot worse. Aldalon does not take any excuses whatsoever. He is a hard-hitting man who says, hey, you either follow my orders, stick with the plan, or get out of the way. And more than that, though, we also got highlights from the orcs themselves, with Nogrok, the orc commando. Nogrok was actually a very interesting character to learn with, because we see him as an orc with intelligence, with tactics, someone who has a thinking skills. And not gonna lie, Nogrok as a smart orc is a terrifying opinion, and I gotta say, watching him having to deal with the usual orcs, survival of the fittest, but also just like who has the biggest weapons, who has the best gear, as well as even clan rivalries, no less. It was interesting to see more of the orcs, and I really should probably pick myself up an orc novel sometime, just to see more of them in action. They're a lot of fun to read about, and seeing a smart orc is pretty terrifying. But more than that, this novel really shines a light on how war can change a person. From Torvin transforming from a scared conscript to a fearless soldier over the course of the novel, and even Nogrok himself being given the chance to rise through the ranks to become a war boss through tactical thinking. He outplays his war boss, allowing him to get killed so that way he can take control of the war band that he has been working with, in order to take command and try to teach them the smart way of thinking, the smart way to fight, which, that alone, is pretty terrifying. But watching Torvin transform from a scared little boy into a fierce fighter was something to behold. Like, just to give an example, throughout the novel, we see him holding a picture of his fiancée. At first, he's holding on to it, just trying to keep make sure he has a memory of his homeland. But over the course of the novel, we see that he eventually starts abandoning some of his ideas of even returning home. What's the word I'm looking for? He disregards his past, even his fiancée, because he comes to realize that he has been conscripted into the Emperor's army. Thoughts of home will only drive him to get killed much more quickly than it will just trying to survive to the next day. He learns this because the Catachans do not mess around. They know that any day can be their last, especially in the Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard. Torvin comes to learn this lesson the hard way, with trial after trial, and we see him evolve from a scared conscript who's just trying to survive and is a little bit cowardly, to jumping in the path of an orc war boss with nothing but a knife, driving it into his leg just to give his commander the time to take a shot. That is pretty cool to see. And I liked how the Catachans kind of adopted Torvin into the end of it. They do suffer losses, which definitely hurts, but over the time, watching them bring Torvin into their ranks was pretty cool. But Colonel Audalon himself was also a fascinating character, with just how he has to cope with the loss of one of his kids who was with him and under his command, being killed by Nogrok himself, because Nogrok actually possesses a Catachan knife, which, if you're wondering, these are very sharp, very hard to cut machetes. And Audalon, realizing that he is fighting the same orc that killed his child, drives him into a rage. And it's really fun to see even a commanding officer can be shaken. Someone who's seen battle after battle, being driven to the point of anger just the sight of any orc within his path, only for him to come to terms with that after realizing he's putting his own daughter at risk, and in fact disrespecting her as a fellow soldier, because he keeps on trying to protect her, trying to be a father first instead of a commanding officer. Honestly, this whole novel had me hooked from start to finish. It was hard to put down at times, and it really made for an engaging read, especially with the Astra Militarum in general. I like how, well, let me explain this in my random thoughts segment, if I may. So, random thoughts here. When it comes to the Astra Militarum novels, one of the things I really like about them is that because they are so scattered throughout the galaxy, you get various different platoons, or different types of troopers, fighting in many different areas. Some really good examples include Steel Tread, which talks about Acadian tanker crew having to come to terms with the fact that their homeworld is long since gone, and having to learn to adapt and just try to survive but keep Cadia alive in their hearts was a hard pill for them to swallow. But it was really cool to read about an armor crew, no less. Seeing that camaraderie in tight-knit quarters, or even the novel of Krieg, which introduces the origin story of the Death Corps of Krieg and their usual fighting now during the Octarius War, which, as of right now in the current setting of 40k, is long since over as of 10th edition. But some really good perspectives with Krieg and Steel Tread is because they were different. They took place on different battlefields, giving you this whole galaxy-spanning idea that there are multiple different wars being fought on different fronts across this entire galaxy. But trying to piece them together is going to be a headache. The best way I can put it with these novels is just to treat them as taking place at the same time in order to avoid the massive headache. But some other really good series, though, that are focused with the Guard include ones such as Gaunt's Ghosts, which is another series I really need to get on. Anyways, I'm possibly ranting here, but one thing I can say is that if you really want good 40k novels, the Imperial Guard, you cannot go wrong. There are various different regiments, different characters, and how they fight can be very diverse and very entertaining to read. But with that being said, let's move on to the final score. Overall, as a 40k novel, I would have to rate Catachan Devil by Justin Woolley as a solid 10 out of 10. It was enjoyable, it was fast-paced, it was action-filled, and if you just want to see the Catachan jungle fighters get the spotlight for a change, go ahead and pick this novel up. I promise you, you will not regret it, especially if you're a fan of things such as guerrilla warfare, fighting in jungles, or if you also want to see the orcs in action if you're an orc fan of 40k. But anyways, you guys, thank you so much for listening, and I really hope this will be the first of many, many videos that I plan to release this year. and I hope you all enjoy this one. Now, if you have any 40k novel suggestions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I would love to hear your suggestions, whether they are old novels or new, or even full-fledged series. Please do not hesitate to shoot those recommendations towards me. Or if you have any other books you would like me to review for the future, shoot those at me as well. It might take me a while to get to them, but I promise you, it will be worth the wait. Anyways, you guys, once again, thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. It really means a lot to me as a reader, as a YouTuber, and hopefully to you guys as a friend. Thank you all once again for listening, and if you like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, or subscribe if you're curious for future content. Once again, thank you so much for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now. Have a great day, fellow readers, and I will see you all in the next review.